Hello, people of the internet. My name is Katie King, and I'm here to talk to you about a recent assignment from class, in which we had to interview 3 people: someone under the age of 25, someone between the ages of 26 and 50, and someone over the age of 50. I talked to these people about how they use technology, about how technology has changed throughout their lifetime, and about how they think it will change in the next 10 years. I interviewed a 20-year-old white male who is currently working on his BA in criminal justice. He uses technology for school, during his free time and for connecting with others. He uses the internet for school to look at things for class and, type things in Word. During his free time, he plays video games and is on Facebook, and he watches TV and goes to the movies. And he also uses Facebook and email and text messaging to connect with others. Alright, he talked to me about how we went from, and are still, buying movies on Blu-ray or on DVDs to now moving to Blu-ray discs. And how Blu-ray discs are becoming cheaper and cheaper so that more people can afford them. Okay, he talked about video games and how they have changed and are continuing to change. We now have HD gaming and online gameplay. Massively multiple player online role-playing games, or MMORPGs, such as World of Warcraft and Star Wars, and how these games can be addictive. He talked about how iPods have changed, such as when they were 4 gigs to now they're 32 gigs, and you can record videos on them or watch videos on them if you so choose, and how we have iPads and tablets. And he thinks that in 10 years we should have virtual reality of some sort with our games, at least. And we could potentially have a Tron scenario going on. He thinks we should have some sort of underperforming AI or artificial intelligence, and that we should all be driving electric cars. Alright, the next person I talked to was one of my friends. She's 28 years old, and she has 2 small boys, and she is working on her BS in business, and she is currently a shipping and receiving clerk. She uses her computer a lot at work. She has to record and keep up with what is coming in and out of inventory, and at work, they have what's called a voice-over IP phone that connects to the internet as a way. It works by connecting to the internet. If the internet goes down, you can't call people on the phone. She also uses her iPhone to check her work emails if she's not at her desk, and she also uses it for her personal emails, to listen to music, for texting, of course, and she also plays games on her iPhone. She talks about how people are more dependent on technology than today than in the past. For example, like the GPS. Alright, today you can just hop in your car, type in an address in your GPS system, and then just drive down the road to where you want to go. Whereas once upon a time you actually had to have a map, like an atlas, that folded and that you had to unfold and eventually fold back together and pre-plan where you were going to go. And sometimes these maps would be outdated and you really didn't know until you got there, and you'd have to stop and ask for directions. Alright, then she talked about how we used to watch movies from VHS tapes and then to DVDs and then to Blu-rays, and now how you can stream things on websites such as Netflix via your television or your laptops, or even onto other little devices such as your phone. And she also talks about TiVo on your television, where you can record what you're watching and then watch it later, or you can pause it and fast forward what you're watching. Alright, and I also don't know if y'all remember, we remember dial-up. Dial-up was what they had before DSL, and it was very, very slow. DSL is much, much better. It would take forever to connect to the internet on dial-up, and the pages would take forever to load, and sometimes it would just become frustrating, and it would be easier to look up something, like going to the library and looking up in a book, than just sitting there trying to find something on the internet. Alright, she also talked about how we have changed the way we use technology and how we store things. We went from using things like the floppy disks to CDs and to zip drives. And then we went into video games, talking about video games, and the Nintendo 64 and the cartridges that you had to blow into to get them to play, because sometimes you freeze and they get overheated, or you have to blow into the console so that it would work. And now you just have things like PlayStations, where you can play games or watch movies or other things, or connect to other groups that are playing and play together. You can, with the CDs, and not just have to fight with it to play. She also talked about how the gaming systems overlap with other things like the phones. Like I said, she plays games on her phones, and one of her favorite games is Citizens Tapped Out, that she plays on her iPhone when she's got downtime. She also notices that some people don't have house phones. Like, she doesn't have a house phone. They have 3 cell phones. She's got one for her husband, one for her, and a just-in-case phone for her oldest boy. And she thinks we're becoming a cashless society. We're becoming more dependent on using cards to get what we need, like credit cards, debit cards, gift cards. Most places don't even take checks anymore. They will stay cash, but less people carry cash. In the next 10 years, she thinks that it's going to be hard to keep your identity. More people it's going to be easier for people to steal your identity because you're using the internet and other such things more and more often, so you have more of your information out there, and it's going to make it easier for people to steal it. And she also believes that real-life interactions they're going to be less of those than interactions via the internet, like talking to someone through Skype. We're going to be able to talk to potentially more people, but just have less real-life interactions. Alright, she thinks that stores, especially the mom and pop stores, are going to become obsolete because you can just order something from the internet, like through Amazon or eBay or something, and have it shipped directly to your house. Okay, she also thinks that we should be driving some sort of fuel cell, battery-operated, not fossil fuel-powered vehicle. I mean, as it is today, she doesn't even need a key to get into her car. In some cars, you don't even need to be in the car to start it. You can just press a button on a keychain and it'll start. So she thinks that the cars are going to become more computerized than they already are today. Alright, the last person that I talked to was my dad. He's 61 years old, and he has a degree in electronics. In 1987, he taught advanced electronics. Before that, he was in a Navy nuclear power school, and where he learned to work on a sub, and he eventually would work at Georgia Power and is currently retired. He uses technology to connect with people, such as calling them on his cell phone, or sending them an email, or connecting with people via messages on Facebook. Scary. My dad uses Facebook. Alright, when he was in high school, he helped to repair TVs, and back then they used vacuum tubes. And he remembers when he was working on the vacuum tube TVs that he never envisioned or dreamed that one day that they would have microprocessing chips inside of them. He remembers the transition in technology from vacuum tubes to transistors to integrated circuits to microprocessors. When he was then he started talking about automobiles. And he says the automobiles of today require less maintenance than they used to. He remembers that every day in the morning he'd have to get up and check the oil and water to make sure that he would actually get to work. He talked about that their spark plugs only lasted about 7,000 to 10,000 miles before they had to be changed because they burnt up. He remembers when they went from diesel to nuclear subs. The diesel subs could only dive about 400 to 600 feet, whereas the normal operating depth of the nuclear sub was about 1,000 feet, but due to top secret clearance, he's actually not allowed to tell me how deep they can go. He talked to me about the cell phone and how it is more technologically advanced than the first computer, which filled an entire room and had to be constantly maintained by about 100 people. Alright, and then he went on to talk about improvements in agriculture and about how farmers can grow more food today than they used to could due to like advances in irrigation and the fact that the tractor sizes are actually big and some of them are computerized. And due to this and like supermarket chains and the way shipping has changed, we are allowed to have more access to different types of foods in our stores. For example, he remembers when he was little that they only got fruit at Christmas time, but now year-round you can go get fruit if you want it. He also talked about in 1954 how his family was one of the first in his area to have a television set, and that it was a vacuum tube, black and white, 18-inch set that weighed about 75 to 100 pounds and cost over $600, which he says you can get televisions cheaper than that today, unless you're buying an HD TV, which are more expensive because the technology is still new, but eventually those prices should go down. He believes that those prices will go down in the next 10 years and that they will be cheaper than the first televisions, because we improve upon the technology we have. We create new technology that allows us to improve upon the technology we have, like the televisions, making them from vacuum tubes to the microprocessing computer chips so that they're HD now, and eventually they'll be cheaper and more affordable for people to buy. And he also believes that in the next 10 years we're going to find alternative energy sources, like we're going to go from fission to fusion, where we're like splitting a hydrogen atom, which creates heat but no radiation, which is the potential source of energy. He also believes that fuel cells and solar panels will eventually become more affordable for the everyday user, so that they can potentially produce 70% of their own energy that they use at home. Well, that is, according to him, and I think he's true, if the big energy corporations let them. Hopefully these big energy corporations see the potential value of solar panels and are investing in those parts for those panels so that they are invested just as much as we are in those new technologies. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment below, and even feel free to make your own video about how technology has changed in your life, about how you use technology, and about how you might think it might change in the next 10 years.